All right, welcome to episode number 46 of the Songwriter's Couch. As you can see, we have a repeat or a regular guest that is on, and I'll introduce her in just a second. But before we do that, if I can get you guys to go down in the bottom, usually do it in the bottom right or left, or where's my finger? This is backwards, so that way, that way. Yep. This way, this way. I'm doing everything in reverse. There you go. That way. Like, subscribe, to all the, comment, all that sort of thing. We do have this new
Oh,
Pet
that's
Boy
nice.
Band merch. We've got hoodies, like we talked about in the last episode, bottles, all sorts of cool stuff. So we'll put the link in the description for that. It helps support the show as well. And on today's show, again, Miss Monika Ryan back on the show.
Oh, thank
Welcome
you.
back.
It's
Yeah, you become a regular on here. So
I know, which is great. Thank you so much for having me. I love coming on and talking to you and
yes,
your audience.
yeah, I kind of feel like I don't know. I feel like we've been old friends for some reason. I feel like like I don't know. When I first started talking, I'm like, yeah, I feel like we in a past life or something we've
Yeah, it's possible.
been
It's possible.
brother and sister or something, or who knows, best friends in college or whatever.
I
But
feel the same. I feel the same. I enjoy hanging out with you.
So I wish I lived a little closer because we could actually get together in person more often. But we'll have to settle on this because I know we're both busy. So we'll do
Yes.
the we'll do the remote stuff. So why don't we start off? Why don't we tell them about what you've got both coming out and has been released since the last time I spoke to you because you got a lot going on and you've got some gigs coming up and a whole year of manic music making and what have you ahead of you. So let them know what's out new and what you got to promote.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm always making tons of music, which is, what we do. It's what we love. I think the last time I was on, I can't remember whether Alive was out or coming out, but my album Alive is out in the world. And what is coming out is my album Sweetness. And six singles are out by now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time this airs, it'll be six. At the moment, not quite. So we're telling the future here
Yes.
on the
Well,
song.
right now there are four out. So there's one tomorrow and then another week.
So people will know when we recorded this. That'll give them a timeline there. So before we get into the album, though, I wanted to do a little twist on our bit that we do on every show, which is the two truths and a lie. But we've already gotten deep into your personal life and your life up until this point, and I think I know almost everything that I could possibly know about you, Monica. Right? No, I don't think
Oh,
that's
I think you know everything.
So I figured, why don't we tailor it like towards the actual project that you're doing, and we'll say, let's do two truths and a lie about the album, or maybe the making of it, or whatever, just something about the album that is a two truths and a lie. So we'll play our theme music right here. If you're ready, you ready to go, Monica?
I am ready.
Beautiful. All right, I'll play the theme music right now, and we're back. All right, so do you have them ready for me? What do we got here?
Yes, yes. Okay, so the new album, Sweetness. Okay. I wrote the entire album in a week.
Mm.
I met all but one of the band members when I was a teenager.
Huh.
I hired three of the four band members and booked the studio before the material was fully written.
It sounds like a me thing to do. Well, there is something to be said about people that get things done, saying yes and then figuring out how to do it after the fact. And I feel like because of your personality, that could likely be true, that you actually hired them ahead of time before everything was finished. So that I'm going to put as a truth for now. Um, Sorry, the first one. Repeat the first one more time.
Oh, I wrote the entire album in
Like
a week.
in a week. It's difficult to do, but sometimes stuff is just flown out of me or flowed out of me very quickly like that, and it usually that's usually how my records kind of get me too. Is it all of a sudden it's just this well of inspiration that happens, and all of a sudden there's an album there. Um, and then the second one, oh man, my mind is not here. So the second one was all of the band members except for one as teenagers. So that's something else. Like I have a lot of friends still from my teenage years in New York City. What do you grew up in New York, right? In New York City?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I feel like those friendships, because there's so much nonsense that happens in New York City, they tend to last longer, those friendships, like just as teenagers there, especially if you are running around the city together. So this is a tough one, actually. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with number two. I'm gonna say that you knew everyone in the band as a teenager, and so that's the lie.
That is actually a truth.
Oh, okay. So which one is the lie?
the the lie is that I wrote all the songs in a week. I didn't.
Okay,
I do write fast,
I
but I didn't do that.
sworn at some point I had heard you say that you did that for some reason. I don't know
I
why.
write a song a day. I mean, I technically could sometimes I write more than one song a day. So I technically could write an album in a week, but
Uh,
I didn't.
so, so all the band members, which band member was not a friend of yours as a teenager, or that you didn't know?
So I met the rhythm section, all of them at different times as a teenager. So the piano player I met, I think I was 16 years old when I first met him,
Huh,
and Spike Wilner, and I was 16 when I met the drummer in different places.
huh.
The drummer played on my audition for the new school. He was already a student there, Joe Strasser. And Neil Miner, the bass player, I was probably 17 or 18 when I met him on the scene. So I was a teenager. The one that I didn't know from the time I was a teenager just turned 28. So I couldn't have known him as a
Yeah,
teenager, but I met him on the New York scene
because
like
you were maybe
last
yeah, you were probably I don't know what one or two when he was born, right? So so but yeah, it's funny because I have friends too, especially musician friends that I've been that I've played music with from that early age. You really have this like connection with them. It's like with
year. Yeah.
my older brother plays, and we used to play all the time together, and it's just so natural when we get together. Like we don't have to talk at all. It just kind of comes out, you know. Do you feel that way with the band that you were working with this time?
Well, and I also didn't say the youngest one's name is Adrian Galante. He's a clarinet player. But interestingly, we haven't played that much together in all the years. But yes, I do feel like that kinship. The person I've played with most in the band is Joe Strasser, the drummer. And not that much. Periodically, there's a gig here and there that I've hired him for, and he's great. He's like a great drummer. It just never happened. Like you have these people who you love to see and you love to work with and you love to create with, and then you don't see them for periods of time. You're both busy, and it never happens. So this was like a trio that I thought would be just great together. And so I hired the three of them, and then I wrote the music for them.
Hmm.
And so I wrote for their voices, which is something Duke Ellington used to do. He would hire his band. And then, if you think about put it like giving somebody material to work with, like if you're writing a script for actors, if you know who's playing the parts, you can write for them,
Yeah.
right? So, like
I,
Ellington used to hire people who he thought sounded great together or would have great, basically musical dinner party conversations, right? And then write for those voices. And then they would play them so beautifully because it's like bespoke music.
yeah, it's like in their voice almost. That's
Yeah.
you're translating. It's interesting because one of the things we did I'm working on a new record now too. That hopefully mid February, end of February, we'll have it out. But I've got, do you know
Congratulations.
Jerome Brooks?
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, so
I love Jerome Brooks
had him do, because he had played that show that you ended up having to miss because you were recording the other album, that
because I
you
was recording this one
yeah you were going to be, oh, this album, that's right, that you were
in
going to be
like a
part of.
day or
But
something.
he was part of that show along with Nasher Modi too, and he might do some guitar stuff on this too. But I've got Jerome doing kind of an intro to one of the songs, and one of the things I thought about as I was writing the intro, because it's all a cappella vocal stuff, just harmonies and kind of like
Oh, nice.
gospel-esque intro to
Yeah.
one of these songs. It's called Late Nights Love Songs and Whiskey. And I wrote it, and I just immediately thought of him and his
Yeah.
group that he had there at that show. And so when I wrote it, in particular, I wrote it for him, and then I finally got back, maybe 2 days, not finally, but he's actually pretty quick about getting stuff back to me. But I think yesterday, the day before, he sent me kind of the final version of what it's going to be. And I was like, it's so perfect. It's like exactly what I thought it was going to be, which is so cool. And I'm not a technical musician that much, so I couldn't write out, music. I'm sure you're probably writing their parts out. Is that what you're doing, like notation wise?
Well, in this case, Adrian, I hired him as an arranger and to play on a couple of the songs. So
Okay.
he doesn't play on the clarinet player. Um, I hired him to arrange the songs, which was, I think, like a really nice, you get somebody else's voice blending with yours in a different way. So
Yeah.
I didn't write the charts for this one. And I can write out charts. I usually run out of time and have to hire someone, and my chart writing doesn't get practiced enough. But part of my New Year's resolution is to write out charts every day too.
Right
So,
on. Yeah, I wish
and
I could say I would do that too, but I can't even. I can't read music, can't do any of that. But what I do have the ability to to uh have people around me that can make up for my inadequacies, let's say.
everybody has to have people. Nobody can do all things. I mean, in this day and age, we're doing so much, like everything, you have multiple social media outlets, your photographs, your recordings, your promotion, your booking, your like people are doing every aspect. There's not enough time to
Yeah.
do everything.
Had what I ended up doing was we ended up instead of me writing out, this is the notes and these are the harmonies kind of that I was thinking. I definitely wanted to give him more space, so I gave him a lot of leeway. Hey, do what you want with this. This is the basics of it. But my keyboard player, Greg, I don't know if you ever met Greg. You probably have not. But he was in the military in Britain in the band there, so he's got a lot of like, classical training and very technical person. Like he can hear a note and tell you what note it is. That
Oh my gosh.
kind of
So
guy.
he's got like perfect pitch.
Yeah, and he knows, okay, if we're doing a harmony, we should be doing this note within, like, he can tell you this is what we're doing. I can't say that. I can sing stuff and do stuff, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you this is an E flat or this is whatever if I'm just singing a note. And so I had
Well,
him.
that's perfect pitch. That's like, I mean, you can sort of habitually, I bet you could, if there are some songs, do you have songs that you always sing? You must always sing certain songs in the same key, right?
Yep, yep,
Can you start them and be on if you did like, and it's just naturally you're starting in the right place?
yep, yep.
Okay, so then in a way, do kind of have perfect pitch. You just don't have a name for that note.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of my.
You know what I mean? Like
It's
if
named
then if
on
you
top
said
of
and
it.
committed it to memory, then you'd be like, oh, I'm always starting in B flat or
But it
whatever.
But I had him write it. So he's the musical director. He wrote it. We passed it on to Jerome, and then Jerome kind of took it to another level with what he was doing, which kind of sounds like what you had happened there. Did you give them a
With
lot of,
Adrian?
yeah,
Yeah,
did you have them
Adrian's great.
did you have the actual musicians like improv at all during the recordings or like before?
Yeah, there's like solo sections, but there were definite arrangements written out. So this album, Sweetness, it's kind of a it's funny. This new one and the last two ones before that are almost kind of like a trilogy. They're the same thing from different sides. So they represent the same thing to me and what I want to put out in the world. They're just different pieces of the same story.
But
So
yeah, why don't we actually tell people one what's out there now? I mean, the name of the album is Sweetness, right?
the
Um,
name of the album is Sweetness. Yeah, and I have okay, as of the time this is airing, I have 6 singles out of 10. So there's one coming every Friday until the whole album's out on February 21st.
I really like that idea too of that like slow roll into the album coming out. It's a cool.
I'm enjoying this process because each piece has its own little it's like a little vignette, it has its own story and that's interconnected to the broader story, but it's its own, scene within. So it's nice to be able to roll them out. And when I decided to do it this way, I decided to just put them in the order they are presented on the album. So it's like listening to the album very slowly. you know?
I like so that's something that my drummer is in his early 20s. My bass player is in his early 20s as well. And one of the things I wanted to do with this album, and I made this suggestion. They kind of gave me like we don't want to do that. When I suggested, I'm like, I kind of want to do like we had done a concept album before where it's all one, storyline that has songs that are in it, and the story in between is actually spoken word. But I broke it up into individual songs too, so you could play them individually, but you can also play it as an album. And I'm a big fan of an album having a concept, having a full kind of story to the actual album. They kind of gawked at the like having skits in between, and I don't mean skits like comedy skits. I mean like skits as in, the song is about something, and so there's something leading to it, or there's just a cool soundscape in between each song that isn't necessarily a song in and of itself, but it leads from one song to the other. Like I want to make it a full, like an actual art album from beginning to end where
Right. So it could be staged like a play, really.
right, like you can listen to the
Yeah.
whole way through, and it's a story into it and of itself like that, or each song is its own story too and be listened to. I'm a fan of like having both options. I think they're from the era now where you don't listen to a whole album, you listen to individual songs, which is why I kind of think they gave me some crap about putting there, like, why
Well,
would you do that?
technically you could probably you could do a yes and you could have both. Like when I say the songs go together in a narrative, I mean it's a vibe and different aspects of the same energy, but they're not like it's not. I don't have characters that you're following.
Right, right.
Um, you know, but you could do that, and you could have each song. Oh boy, like Bon Jovi's Gina and what's the guy's name? You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
those oh, I can't believe I can't remember the names.
Like Jack and Diane, like that.
Yeah, like this, right, but different
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Right. The Frankie and Johnny, all these you could do yeah, now I'm going to be like what was the couple in the Bon Jovi songs? Um can't believe I'm forgetting. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is
Yeah.
that
Nope.
you can have the characters that go through, but each song is its own individual story.
Right.
That's not what I've got, but that would be a good idea. And actually, nowadays you're seeing a lot of these rockers have plays on Broadway, and they're sourcing their music that could go into a play and developing a play, but you would basically be giving them the play to stage with this album.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this one, the particular one that we're working on now, isn't as much like our first. Mask, that album was a full on, like we actually did it as part of the Fringe Festival. There's a full play involved, like we had a narrator. I wanted to get people actually acting it out in the middle of it. I couldn't put that together in time for it. But I think that your albums have a similar, I mean, not like that where there's a full story, but they definitely have a theme to it. Like Alive definitely has a theme to the album. It feels like cohesive. But you can listen to
Thank
each
you.
one individually. So like Sweetness, what's the um I'm supposing you probably had a theme to it or something that you wanted.
Yeah, there's a theme, and the theme, the whole thing is like the theme and the songs, the lyrics, and the sonic theme. Essentially, they're all locked into the same. They're all in the same, you know, box, or not
What would
box.
you yeah, what would you call that, not box, but what would you call that what would you say that is, I mean, obviously the album's called Sweetness. Uh
Yes.
so that's probably part of it.
Yes.
Would you
So it's all the tiny, so Alive was very macro and this is very micro. This is all the little sweet things that we have in life that we all have access to. So like if we're all, it's the same idea that life is pretty exhausting when you're running the rat race in this time, paying attention to catastrophes and tragedies and unrest and things that will stress us out and diminish our vitality, right? So in order to thrive in a highly stressful environment, greater environment, we have to find ways to be happy and ways to connect to our life force. And so, Alive was talking about like this. These are ways we're alive, right? Sweetness is like, well, here are lots of little sweet things that we all have access to, like right now.
nah.
Like here's one way to tap into the joy of life, and look, here's it. Come with me. Let's go on a walk and enjoy some life.
Do you find, I don't know if we've had this conversation. I think I've talked it with a bunch of people sometimes after a few drinks. I have this conversation, but I find that like certain artists are really good at picking up on those things, sitting in a moment and saying this is beautiful, even though it's a mundane thing that I'm experiencing. Like you're just sitting there. Sometimes I'll sit even in a bar, right? I'm at a bar and I'm with someone and I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing, a girl, maybe there's someone's first date or something, or there's whatever happening. And I pick up on those moments. I feel like more than maybe people that are not creative. Like usually if with a musician, they'll pick up on it too, and they'll be like, "Oh, look at that cute little couple over there, being in
Sure.
love or
Yeah.
whatever." Women tend to do that more too. Like if I'm just in a group of women, they'll pick up on stuff like that just because they're emotionally, I feel like, more in tune with the environment. But I feel like artists in particular really really do that, and people that are happier in or more, not necessarily happier, but like they recognize those small little sweet moments in life, the beautiful moments in life. Um,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. There's
personality trait almost, I feel like, to do that, and it really does bring joy if you can find these beautiful things. Because even when you're upset or something bad has happened to you, if you go out and you see this beautiful thing happening in front of you, mundane, piece of life, and you can appreciate that little thing in those moments, makes you not so miserable, and in the happier moments makes you even more happy.
right.
You feel like because I feel like you're a pretty positive, you know person overall. I don't know you that well, and you're, if you go home and cry every night and sulk for hours, but like at least from the experience you're pretty, like, you have two kids, you probably it's stressful, you live in New York City. I mean, there's a lot going on. Everyone has something to be miserable about, but you seem to be pretty happy and you're making art and all that sort of thing. And so I don't know what the question is necessarily, but do you feel like you pick up on that more than maybe some people like in your life that aren't creative?
I
Or
think I think first of all, thank you. And I live in New Jersey, close to New York.
Okay, well, in the
But
metro area, I guess you
a
could.
metro area. But yeah, I think I'm a happy person. I'm a sort of a happy realist, I would say.
And I guess, do you think that's a cut? Because I have to focus on that sometimes too. Sometimes I find myself in a situation where I'm like, oh, I'm down, and then I see something, and I'm like, I should really. This is stupid that I'm focusing so much on the negative. Look at what's happening, what life is like. It's so petty what I'm thinking about, even if it is something bigger. Um, do you have to like consciously bring that out of yourself, or is it
I
something that comes natural?
well, I think I do I've practiced I think everything we practice we become.
Mm.
So, I mean, you can practice intentionally or practice unintentionally, like the subconscious practice, lots of practicing for us. But I do practice gratitude. Like I like to thank people when they do things for me. So that's acknowledging that people have done things for me. And even if it's a small thing, like, my husband came and brought me a cup of tea, I would say thank you. And I would mean it. And so that's a practice of gratitude. It's not shaking it off. It's really receiving.
Mm.
Um, and so I think the practice of gratitude, actually, I know I don't have to think it. The practice of gratitude makes people happier. Um, and that's been psychologically studied and proven that the practice of gratitude, that's why all these psychologists and therapists and self-help people recommend that people have gratitude journals because it generally makes you happier. And it also makes you more successful because everybody likes working with somebody that sees them and appreciates them. So, in general, gratitude for the win.
Yeah.
But if you're happy, if you're grateful for what you have, then you can be happy. So I guess because how could you be complaining? You can recognize that horrible things happen and sad things happen, and that's very real. Like that's real. But if you can hold on to the thing that's good, you can you can be stronger than if you didn't. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I'm trying to remind people or model or whatever it is. Give them that break from, even if they're in, if they come and hear me sing and take or listen to pop in one of these songs and they're feeling like, frenetic, 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 it can be like, okay, okay, okay. Yes, yes, okay. I've got these things.
Are there so, because I mean, you were talking about journaling, but you wrote an entire album basically about that, about those little things and the sweetness.
Yeah.
Are they written about specific moments, or is it something um where maybe you had an experience and then you decided to write a song, not necessarily about that particular experience, but about the emotion of it? Or what was like, how did you approach the writing process of it, being that we're, of course, the Songwriters Couch? So, like,
Well,
what?
this album, I really just thought about different things that are like I didn't they were not specific things. Okay, they're written about specific things, but they're not specific events or people.
Hmm.
So, the first song, Hello, is about greeting a friend. I was thinking about, oh, that's something wonderful that we have. And I guess in hiring this band, who I haven't seen in a long time, a lot of them, and one new person, um, I have a fondness. It's seeing an old friend. And that's really just greeting an old friend and saying, let's not have it be so long. And that's a sweetness. So that's the first song is I guess that's the most specific. But the rest of them are just they're they're me describing feelings. Like Sweetness is the title track. I titled the album before I wrote the title track, but then I was like, oh wait, this happened on the last album too. I titled the album Alive, and then was like, I need a song called Alive.
What? What's always interesting to me too. Sometimes people will like name an album something that has nothing, like none of the songs are really that. and it always I'm always like, why name it that? It seems like a weird branding thing to not have a song, that has it. But
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, in my case, it's like this all ties into sort of observing the world and around us, as well as I think many musicians, I am, and I think many musicians are empaths,
mm,
empathetic. And if you're an empathetic person, you actually are, it's actually, uh, I would say, a better collaborative artist because you're all making music together. You have to be able to feel the room. It's sort of, you have lots of unspoken communication. You have eyes and feelings and slight groove twitches and switches. And you have to be able to feel that stuff, collectively.
uh,
So I think any empathetic person who can sort of feel what's happening in the room, they're going to be the people who are going to observe those things.
yeah, and I think that's a blessing and a curse sometimes because I definitely feel like I'm that, and it can definitely it can ruin my day to be being
Feeling somebody's negativity or something.
like it'll ruin my week if I get into a situation where I feel like maybe even I said something where I interpreted as I said something wrong. Like if you knew, if every time I forget someone's last name or I missay the amount I rue on that for weeks,
Oh,
weeks and weeks about how that must have made them feel. But sometimes I'll go back to them, after
yeah,
whatever.
and they won't have
Weeks,
thought about
like,
it twice.
I don't even remember that happening, and I spent weeks and weeks thinking
Yeah.
this thing.
You have to be
Um,
easier on yourself about that kind of thing. As someone who has an unusual first name, people with unusual names or people who have, even any, like speaking for myself, I expect that.
Well, that's me too. I mean, look at my last name, right?
Yeah.
It's like I get it all the time. People misspell it. They have no idea how to say it or whatever, and I don't care at all. So why do I feel like I shouldn't feel that
Yeah.
bad? I know that they probably get it all the time too, and that but whatever, I'll sit on and I'll think about it forever. So it's
Yeah.
but that same obsessive.
Well, you care. You care, which is beautiful, really. It's a beautiful quality.
Yeah. I wish sometimes I could turn that off too. But do you feel
Yeah.
like
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do you feel like that can because I feel like also with creativity that can sometimes get in the way because you'll sit and you'll think about the thing that you wrote, and if you're having a good day, it can be like this is the best thing I've written. This is great. I love it. And then the next day you can be like, I hate this and I never want to hear this again. I never want to play it again. And depending on it's almost like depending on how you're feeling, sometimes it can push and pull you a little bit, and I have to like step outside of myself sometimes to be like, okay, you're just having a day where this something has affected you, and wait till tomorrow before you make a decision that's cutting a song or not wanting to do something or whatever. So sometimes I'll purposefully ignore to a decision I have to make until I'm in a better, a more
In a
clear,
better headspace.
because I feel like
Yeah.
emotionally, not that I'm erratic, but that things can definitely give me strong feelings that I find I want to call them normal people, but normal people don't get so wrapped up in it. I appreciate the sweetness part of it, like the recognizing those little things. Do you feel like you get into ruts sometimes though too because of that, like because of the way you
I am I don't often get into ruts.
Mm.
But I used to, as like like the stumbling blocks of an empath. I used to be so empathetic that I could feel. I am still that empathetic, but I know how to handle it. Where I could feel somebody else's sort of, if somebody felt awkward or if somebody felt bad about something, I would feel it and almost assume it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what did I do? And I didn't do anything. Like as much as I would replay it back in my head, I'd be like, nope, 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 nope. And what I learned over the years was to be able to say, I wouldn't do that.
Mm.
That was them.
That's so funny that you said
And
you still
and
feel it though, right? You still feel
what?
you said you still feel it during that time, right? Like you're still feeling.
Well, if somebody's feeling awkward and I know I didn't do anything, I don't have to take it on. I can just go, okay, I can be totally comfortable with however they are.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
I can be the port in the storm. I'm cool, man. I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah. I feel like at least lately in the last probably 2 years, I've because I tend to cling to those people because I want to kind of like I want to say to them, look at all these beautiful things too that are around, and that sort of thing. So I think in the last couple of years, I'm 44 now. So it took me that long to kind of learn that, to almost have it's not necessarily boundaries, but boundaries on what I'm assuming I'm creating in the situation just by um, you know, allowing myself to also be comfortable in a situation. Like I don't have to assume that, you're
Yeah, like some people are just uncomfortable for whatever reason, and that's their journey.
so I guess
And like we could just be a nice person for them to sort that out next to.
yeah, and I almost feel too sometimes like because you're empathetic and they can tell that you're actually feeling and you're having empathy, or you're relating to them. They want to just unload a bunch of stuff and they feel very comfortable just getting
Yeah.
out, and you could get um not taken advantage of, but like it can be overwhelming sometimes when everyone in your life is doing that and you're having a day where you're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I need my I need my
Yeah.
own
That's when you
emotion.
need really solid boundaries. You need to be like, okay, all right, this is happening, and this is what they need to do, but this isn't working for me. So I'm gonna politely excuse myself. I'm gonna say thank you for telling me your story. Excuse me, I have to go.
I don't do this podcast for the viewers, for the people that are listening, for I do it for me. It's my own like personal therapy session. So I know I'm not alone in feeling some of this stuff that I do.
No, so go. Let's get back to ruts.
Yeah,
So ruts. I don't know. I'm pretty scientific about my writing, actually.
but
I write every day, and another thing I sort of learned many years ago is to not look at my writing like good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, but more like it's all an experiment, and some things work and some things don't work. And so it's not emotional to me in that way. If I get it right, I'm like, oh, that worked. If I don't get it right, I'm like, oh, okay, I won't do that again. That didn't work.
yeah,
And so it's very sort of scientific. Even though I'm an emotional person, I am able to remove a step and observe.
yeah.
So I can create, but then also observe in a science. And like the best way to describe it is like a scientist, like watching an experiment unfold.
Yeah.
It's not good or bad. It just either worked or didn't work.
I almost feel like as a like in society as a guy, it's I don't want to say frown on, but like to share emotion can sometimes like you have this as a man, sometimes you have this pressure to not necessarily show emotion. And so while I'm feeling all this, I've got to pretend like it's not
Oh
affecting
yeah,
affecting me too. And it could
it's
be,
hard.
and I feel like sometimes women can mature emotionally a little bit like quicker because they're allowed to kind of feel things and explore it. Um, so I do want to get back to the album, I'm glad we had that little discussion because um,
Side quest.
yeah, I've been I've been lately making a point to not take those things on um,
Yeah.
because they only end up putting me in negative space.
Oh, and they're not you.
And I
They're not
appreciate
you.
all the minuscule things that I find beautiful, and I want to enhance that in my life and not the other things. So I've actually cut some people off too in my life in the last couple of
Mm,
years, where I'm like, I love you, and I want to remain friends and have a relationship with you, but it's almost like they come to me and they dump everything because they know I'm going to listen. But
yeah.
whatever. So back to the album. Um, and I want to know one, um, where did you record it? Did you record it uh,
Okay.
nearby?
I, yes, I recorded it at the Bunker in Brooklyn,
Oh,
which is a great studio. They get a lot of all different styles of music, but they have a lot of great jazz albums coming out of there. Um, and the engineer Aaron and I talk about name pronunciation. I don't want to get it wrong, but I might. It's like Nivsi. Nivsi. It's written in the liner notes, but I never said it out loud or actually heard him say it out loud. So um, I don't know what how to pronounce it. So I'm sorry, Aaron, if you're
how long?
listening.
How long did it take you to record? How long were you in the studio for? Was it?
So we recorded the band in a day. It was probably like 7 hours.
Mm.
And then I tend to, because I can record myself at home, I tend to, make sure that we get the right take of the band there. And I did, I sang. So two of the songs on the album are the original, like we only did one or two takes of every song. And two of the songs on the album, I didn't redo the vocals, but I redid the rest of the vocals in on this microphone in my house, um, because I listen back and I go, oh, I could sing that with a little bit more depth, or I could sing that with a little choppier rhythm. And I don't take that time when I've got the band there. I also try to really like consider everybody in the studio with me and their multifaceted lives. Like in the band, out of the five of us, three of us are parents.
Mm.
I have the oldest kids, but two of them had little kids and are working musicians and had gigs and stuff to do. So I don't want to hold them while I contemplate my vocal take.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I want them to get the best take they can get, and I'll sing. And if it's great, it's great. If it's not great, I'll just do it at home the next
yeah.
day or so, which
That's
is what I did.
yeah. It's kind of similar to what I do too. I usually let the band, especially if we're paying for studio space in any way,
Mhm.
I'll get them in there. Respect their time. Hey, go. Let's record this. If I need to redo the vocals, and I do like to also I like to have the finished basic tracks and then listen to it over and over and over again because sometimes stuff, especially if they're new songs, they evolve in your head and you hear things going on in it that you can, if you have the ability, like I have the ability to record here too, um, that you can add at the end. What's your favorite track on the album, if you have one, where they all your
It
baby, obviously, right? But
they're this one, they're all like they're very different. I don't know which is my favorite. I will say one of the songs, just like on Alive, one of the songs is a collaboration on this one, which is the last song. Um, Sean Harkness, wonderful guitar player. He was playing my mother's 80th birthday party, New Year's Day a year ago, and he was like, I wrote this song. Would you like to write lyrics to it? And I said, sure, send it over to me. And so he sent it over to me. And I was like, oh, I love this song.
hmm,
So I wrote lyrics to that. So that's the last song on the album, Fancy Watch, it's called. That's the only one that the sort of melody and chords I didn't write. I wrote the lyrics. But same thing on the last album. I had a collaboration with the guitar player on one song where I wrote the words.
yeah. I
It's
love doing that because I feel like sometimes it produces such a it's so it's so there tends to be more complexity and it's just more interesting when you have multiple voices that are uh,
Yeah.
all expressing in a different way, and especially if you're used to writing and someone else has kind of written the parts that you usually do, your approach changes, I feel like, too, a little bit when you're writing
Yeah.
to someone else's style. um
Yeah, I know. I definitely love, I like, this is one reason, one of many reasons actually, or one of a handful of reasons, one of enough reasons not to, why I don't just, MIDI out music. Like, and I kind of refuse to. One, I like to hire live musicians. That's numero uno, just because I don't want to use machines. But the second part of that is that even if I could get the same sounds that we ultimately end up with, I want that creative input of each artist that puts their hand on it. You know, it's like you have their voice and their presence. And I'm not saying I can get their same voice, by the way. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm insinuating. I think some people are very gifted at MIDI input. I'm not dogging them either. But I like the interaction with the other people and their creative voices. Like, if any one of those people were different, it would be a totally different album.
Hmm.
If any one of the five of us were different, it would be a totally different album. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you know,
I love what I've heard so far, and I'm excited to hear the rest of the album. And I know we are doing. I want to talk to you for the next hour and a half, Monika. So
I know we love to talk. That's what happens.
I'm already getting yelled at by Allie's like, "Are you got to cut it? You got to cut the thing there." So
Really?
let's do that. So what's the next song again? Why don't we do your promo here of the album and where people can find stuff and all that sort of thing,
Oh,
and what'll be out in 2 weeks, what songs they can actually go and get.
okay. So they'll be everywhere that streaming is happening. So, all the big streaming companies and that can be downloads can be bought on Apple. Also on my website, which is Monika, MonikarRyan.com. And what is out now from Sweetness are Hello, Sweetness, I Will Love You Always, Dream Come True, Could It Be, and Everything is Possible. And the next one coming on Friday is I'm Awfully Delighted.
Well, I'm awfully delighted to have you on the show again, Monika. So
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate talking to you, and like I said, I could talk to you for another 3 hours here if my producer
If
wasn't
time
doing
permitted, I
it.
could as well.
But before we go here, everyone watching, don't forget. I'm trying to do it. There we go. I'll do this. Does that work? Go down somewhere and like and subscribe and all that. It helps us. Don't forget about the band merch. I'll put patrickjoanne.com. You can get it there. It helps support the show. If you know any sponsors that want to sponsor the show, we're welcoming new sponsors as well. Although I'm kind of liking not having an official sponsor because we don't have to let it necessarily answer anyone to. We can kind of make decisions on the fly. But Monika, I would love to have you back again. Maybe when the
Thank
album is completely out at some point, a few months, we can have that. Or if you have a new project coming up or whatever, you're always welcome on the show. So I like having
thank you.
a regular that I like to speak to him. Just real quick before we go, that thing on your door there, what is that behind you?
Oh,
That's
that it's a little bell. It's Indian. These are little birds, and there's a bell. I have this kind of thing all over the room.
yeah.
I've got like a heart with bells over there. Got some elephants and bells over there. If you could see what's in front of me, I have a stained glass thing that says peace and rainbow stained glass. It's like you know, pretty things everywhere. Pretty rainbow things everywhere, and
Excellent.
plants.
All right. Well, everyone watching, listening, go follow Monika Ryan on her Instagram or Facebook, her website. Go download the freaking album. Download it. Don't just stream it. Download it first, and then yes, go and stream it 1,000,000,000 times as well. Because streams don't pay as well as downloads. So download a physical copy too. Monika, love having you on the show again. We'll have
Thank
you on soon again. And thank you to everyone that watches and listens and all that. And we'll see you on the freaking next one.
you.
Say goodbye, Monika.
Bye. Thanks for having me.